That's better. What's going on, guys? Today, I'm on my local lake. This is Rocky Mountain PFA. I am running a little bit late because we got my truck stuck a couple times in the yard because it's been raining for 3.5 months. And so finally got the boat out. And I got about 4 hours to fish before the rain hits. So we're going to hustle up, throw everything in the boat, get up on the lake, try to get organized, and get to fishing. These are the type of days with the water warming up, with the temperatures warming up, and with thunderstorms moving in that you catch big ones. I don't care what Bass Forecast app says on my phone. It says it's going to be a poor day. I'm going fishing because the big ones are going to be biting. So stay tuned. We're gonna do this one together. All I'm doing is just rotating between baits until I find one that comes close to what mood they're in or what they want to eat. Bottom baits, moving baits, and the whole time I'm just watching for fish to follow. We got fairly clear water. Visibility is about 4 feet, maybe 3. And I'm just throwing spinner baits, crankbaits, lipless crankbaits, chatterbaits, dragging a Savage Gear live 3D crawl around a little swinging jig head. That's probably one of my favorite baits this time of year for dragging, just because it's a floating crawl, so that swinging jig head keeps it down, but the claws come up and the body comes up and it looks just like it's sitting in a fighting stance. So when I kind of pinpoint what depth they're at, that's when I'll grab that, or when I decide they don't want to chase. And that's the biggest thing, is just trying to figure out what kind of a mood they're in. You know, are they up this shallow? I'm gonna run this shallow flat's probably one of my favorite flats to run, just to check, because I'd like to pull up. Man, I got a bearing that's going bad. That's what happens when you use a reel all the time. No big deal, I can get that fixed. All right, so let's talk about how I use a spinnerbait. I used to have zero confidence in a spinnerbait years ago, and it's one of those baits where I finally, which is funny because I caught my first fish over 5 pounds in my entire life when I was like 15, 14 years old on a spinnerbait. But I took it out one day and or actually for 3 or 4 days, and made myself get confidence in it. So there's certain ways that I fish it, and this time of the year, it's pretty simple. If you notice what I'm doing, I'm giving it a few turns and I'm popping it just to get those blades in that skirt to flare up. Try to get a reaction strike. I'm not slowing down, I'm going pretty fast. Like I said, the water temperature's warmed up quite a bit. This is a protected pocket. It's one of those northwest facing pockets. And I just cover water with it. I got a 7:3 gear ratio reel, if I remember correctly. Yes. That's why I haven't switched this reel out. This is I got my other baits are on 7:3 but yeah, little bearing noise. That's easy to fix. But anyway, so I throw it out and I let it fall down until I just barely can't see it, until it just goes out of sight, and then I'm just popping it around. I'm trying to, like I said, just trying to get a reaction strike. There are other ways to fish a spinnerbait. I can drag it on the bottom. I mean, shoot, I know I've caught a ton of big fish just letting it sink to the bottom and dragging it. But I throw it on a medium, heavy, moderate action rod, or a medium, fast action rod. And 12 to 15 pound test fluorocarbon most of the time. Like 7:3 gear ratio reel, just you know, your standard moving bait outfit. but it's great for covering water. It comes through timber really good. It just comes, it's like a weedless jig. It works where crankbait doesn't. It's just a downright good bait, but I'm hoping to see some kind of life of bass in here. There's tons of bait fish on this little flat, so hopefully I can trick one into grabbing this. I think this is a 3/8 ounce spinnerbait, little mini-me spinnerbait. I'll leave the link to where you guys can find it down in the description. All the baits and tackle that I use in all my videos, I'm gonna start putting the links down there so you guys can go find them online. Makes it real easy for you. So fun. Let's keep fishing. I got about 3 hours, maybe more. So the biggest thing that I say when you're trying to figure out fish is don't be afraid to tie knots. It drives me nuts when people, you know, won't change lures because they don't want to retie. They don't want to tie another knot. They blah blah blah. Just get good at tying them. Practice. You know, I'm just like, it bangs my head up against the wall just to think about all the fish you could have caught. But you didn't change lures. You kept using the one that wasn't working. I love to experiment. But yeah, be sure to not be afraid to retie. And don't use those dang little swivels. Little split swivels. Now, those little duo clips I use when I'm changing crankbaits up, that kind of stuff, they tend to mess up the action of a lipless, but square bills, deep diving crankbaits, they don't do much to the action of them, and I use them until I pinpoint what crankbait they want, and then I will take that thing off and tie directly to the crankbait. Just too many, just another thing that can fail, and I don't like it. I've lost some pretty good lures to some really bad duo clips. Let's pull out to about 6 feet. See if that makes a difference. Old lipless crankbait, you guys. I'll put the little link to the video up top here. This is I love to fish it this way. When they're on it, they choke it. When I get into the middle of them and I start cranking like this and they start, I get the school turned on, man, they swallow this thing. Plus I can cover a lot of water with it. Need a little wind. Now if I don't get a bite up in this big pocket, I'm gonna pull out onto the flats that are on the outside of the mouth of this pocket. This is the biggest spawning pocket on this little bitty lake, so it's definitely a focus of the majority of the fish on the lake. It's the closest to the deepest water on the lake. It's just got everything that a bass would need to spawn. And I really need to work it over a little bit faster since the sun is going down. All right, so I pretty much fished out this area, at least covered it fairly fast. What I'm gonna do next is there's a bunch of laydowns right here. I'm gonna turn the camera and show them to you. So a bunch of laydowns right here, all along this bank. I'm just gonna go look. I'm gonna pull up in the shallow water and see if some of those males have pushed up. And just see if I can see some shallow. If not, we're gonna pull back out, go fish the flats on the mouths of the creek, or the mouths of this pocket. Who knows? All right, well, if there was gonna be a bass anywhere, it's gonna be right there. I got carp up shallow. All right, let's get out of these shallows and crank up the motor and head out to the main lake. Start hit some of these flats and these points that are in the mouths of these pockets. Frustrating. You want it to happen so fast and it just, sometimes it doesn't. That was a bump. Well, definitely a bump. No doubt I had a fish bump it. Yay! Pull it out onto this flat. Got a little bit of rough bottom. I'm sitting in about 9 feet. Just dragging it along that bottom and got a pretty good little bump. Oh, I know I'm gonna find them. Just gotta keep looking. I know it, I know it, I know it. I just gotta keep looking. I got 1, 2 more hours. Gotta love daylight savings. Oh gosh, there was one. Drag and drop. Just barely dragging too. Man, he's a good one too. He freaking thumped it. Oh, gosh almighty. You just show them something they aren't used to seeing. Might be a big catfish, but I don't think so. I think it's a freaking giant bass. Oh my gosh. Guys, look at this fish. Oh, yes! Woo! Man, oh man. Look at that son of a gun. Oh my gosh. Never give up. Probably one of the greatest phrases in hen fishing, whatever I'm doing right now. Gosh, I'm shaking like a leaf. Look at that fish. Oh, wow. So the last 5 fish I've caught on this lake have been giants. This one's about 5.5, maybe 6. I'm gonna put him in the box, finish fishing, then I'll get a weight on him and then release him. So God, oh, that's awesome. All right, so what I was doing was I was slowly dragging this red eye shad on the bottom and on that rough spot. Okay, so I left that rough spot, went back to it, fished this bank. I said, man, I just know there's a bunch of fish on that rough spot. Just didn't get a bite. So I came back over here and I just slowed down on the same rough spot. And I started just, one of the things I love to do when they're just not biting good, but I still want to catch them on a lipless, is just drag it. Just barely off the bottom and then let it stop and rest on the bottom and then drag it some more. So I throw it out, throwing it on a chatter crank rod, medium moderate action rod, heavy moderate action rod, 15-pound test fluorocarbon, 7:3:1 gear ratio reel. And I literally just dragging it just like this and dropping it, dragging it, and yes, you will get hung up. I promise you that. But on these type of areas you typically don't, because it's just hard bottom with a little bit of rock and stuff you got to pull through. That's all I was doing, and just letting it fall down. So I just had to think slow, just get my brain to start thinking a little bit slower. And he freaking crushed it. Oh, that was awesome. You will get hung up doing this, but that fish made it all worth it. Oh, just popped loose. I have a lure retriever just in case. Man, that's a beautiful spot. All right, big man, I'm gonna take some pictures of you and your daddy holding this fish. You wanna grab this one?
Hold him tight.
Hold him tight. There you go. Stand right over there. Let's get the sun on that side. Mama's gonna be in the background.
My daughter.
Oh, daughter, sorry. I didn't even look.
His fins are up too. That's a good picture.
He's pretty good. All right, bud, I'm gonna get you one by yourself. Turn this way a little bit. There we go. Yeah. What do you think? Is that a big one? good and healthy.
Nice.
She was out there in the middle just feeding.
Eyes all big. Big old eyes in.
Wanna kiss it? All right, let's let it go. That's always fun. Put a big fish in a little kid's hands and their eyes light up and they want nothing more than to go catch one. There's another one. Oh, another good one. That's what I'm talking about, doing about the same thing. What? Man, he ate it too. Man, that's a nice one. Came right back out to the same spot. Set up, cast at the same angle, made the same cast. 15 minutes later, caught another one. Well, I'm gonna try one more spot, just right up here. I keep seeing just a few fish every 10 minutes or so jump up. Started to do a little bit of schooling, and there's a nice big drop right over here. I'm just gonna go try it out. Pretty much satisfied with the day. I feel like I've redeemed myself after yesterday's freaking I guess you could just call it a skunk. I got my butt kicked yesterday. I was miserable, it was cold, it was wet, and I gave up, and I hate it when I give up. But today I just stayed at it. I knew I didn't have a whole lot of time, so I moved a little bit faster, and then when I realized that moving too fast was not a thing, I slowed down and caught two big ones. So let's go over here and see how this spot works out, and then we'll put it on the trailer, so stay tuned. Glue didn't hold. All right, so real quick, I don't know if I explained exactly how I'm fishing right now because I got too excited about that bass, but one of the really cool ways of fishing the lipless crankbait that people don't think about and bass don't see very often is what I call a drag and drop. And literally, I'm just pulling it fast enough to get it barely off the bottom so it comes off about this far and then letting it fall back down to the bottom. You get hung up a lot. Just part of it, but when you're covering a flat and the fish aren't very active, it's just I mean, I've caught them that way in the fall. Deep, I've caught them, caught them shallow right now. I mean, it's just a great way to catch bass when they're not super active, but they ought to be. It's hard to explain. It's one of those things you just kind of have to keep trying under situations until you figure out what certain situations are the best. And it's just a shallow flat. I was fishing in about 7 to 10 feet of water, catching those two big ones, exact same spot. And here I'm trying a shallower spot. It actually goes up, I think, about 3 feet right up here, but it drops real quick into about 20, and I'm sitting in 20 right now. So hopefully by fishing this way, it'll bring it real slow down that drop, and it'll be a fish sitting somewhere around on that drop. But yeah, that's how I'm doing it. Just different. And like I said, it's something that people just don't think about, but it works, and it works really good. I want you to notice, let me get the sun out of the front of the camera, and I'll kind of show you how this kind of works out. And I'm not dragging it and then dropping the rod tip back to let it sink straight down. I'm literally dragging and stopping. And so when it falls, it just kind of plunk, falls down just a little bit. So I'm not bothering letting that line go slack, because I guarantee every bite's going to be as soon as you stop it and that thing starts to fall down and it hits the bottom. And the bass just crush it. You feel every bite. Cast it out, let it sink to the bottom, reel up your slack, drag, stop, drag, stop. Just like that. And you do get hung up. A lot. I ain't feeling it, guys. I ain't feeling it at all. Well, I'm gonna call it a day. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Hope I didn't bore you to death. But I caught some good ones. So like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fishing. Introduce them to my channel. Let me help you teach them how to fish. More importantly, get out on the water. Go out and catch some fish and have a great day. It's fun.